Hey everyone, Effie here. Today I'm going to show you how I made the blue version of this card using our new Wishful Wildflowers stamp set. So first I'm just going to rose gold heat emboss the large cluster stamp from the Wishful Wildflowers set, and I'm using my Misti tool to help me stamp this because it's kind of a large stamp. After I heat embossed my cluster, I went ahead and watercolored the florals. For today I'm using cerulean blue, Prussian blue, and sap green. I kind of messed up on this first petal here. You're going to see me put down a little too much Prussian blue. So I went in with kind of a different technique for this first floral. I start putting down the cerulean blue first for all of the petals. So I colored the entire flower in with the cerulean blue first. And then I went in with the Prussian blue in the inner portions of the petal. But for the second larger wildflower on the left side of my panel, I actually painted each petal individually with both colors. So I went in with the cerulean blue first, and then I immediately went in with the Prussian blue. And I found that I got a better blend when I used this technique. So back to the first flower. So as you can see, after I went in with the cerulean blue, I just cleaned off my brush and I started adding the darker shade of blue to add a little bit more depth to my flowers, but I didn't really like the way that this was coming out. So that's why I used the alternative technique to my second flower. When I first started painting this wildflower, I used the same brush to paint the cerulean blue and the Prussian blue. I just cleaned off the brush as I went from the light blue to the dark blue, but it is easier if you use a different brush for each shade. But this is just totally for convenience sake. If you don't have additional brushes, this is totally doable with just 2 brushes. So after I added in the darker shading with the Prussian blue in the inner corners of my petals, I actually went in again with the cerulean blue to the tips of my petals, and this is just going to add a little bit more interest to my flowers. After I finish painting this first wildflower, I'm going to move on to the larger wildflower on the left, and for this floral, I'm just going to work 2 petals at a time instead of painting the entire flower cerulean blue and then going in with the Prussian blue. So as you can see, I'm just going to go in with 2 petals at a time. I'm going to add the lighter blue and then the darker blue. However, I do save the painting of the edges of my petals for the end, and this is just a preference. If you feel like adding it now, you totally can. And for this flower, I did use 3 different brushes. I used one for the cerulean blue, one for the Prussian blue, and a clean brush to blend out all my colors. And this actually saved me time because I didn't have to wipe off the brush to clean it between colors. After I paint the flowers, I'm going to paint all the leaves with my sap green Colorburst. I'm going to turn on some music and I'll be back after I finish painting. For the smaller flowers, I actually paint the petals using a diluted mixture of the cerulean blue and the Prussian blue. And that makes a cornflower shade, a cornflower blue shade, and it's actually really pretty. But I actually meant to use these on the really, really tiny flowers that you see sticking out from the foliage and the florals. So I actually went in with the cerulean blue and I added those to these two petals or these two flowers. And then I actually used that cornflower blue mixture on these smaller florals. Once I finish painting, I'm going to put that panel aside to dry, and then I'm going to use one of the dies from our Modern Labels coordinating die sets to cut out this label shape onto an A2 size panel. And what's really great about these dies is that they have the outside stitching line. After I die cut the label, I'm going to use that window and just trace a line towards the bottom edge of that window onto an A2 side folding card base. Then I'm going to blend some Caribbean turquoise at the bottom portion of that window using my stencil brush. And I'm going a little darker towards the bottom, and you're going to see a little bit of that pencil line through the window, but that's okay because this is going to be covered by the wildflowers. Then I'm going to cut 2 strips from our green foil adhesive paper. After I cut the 2 strips, I'm just going to trim the edges of my die cut window panel, and then I'm going to adhere the 2 strips onto my card base. Once I've put down the 2 strips of glitter foil, I'm going to trim off any excess with my scissors. Next, I'm going to die cut my Wishful Wildflower cluster using the coordinating die, and this panel is completely dry at this time. You want to make sure that you dry it because when you put down that washi tape to hold down the die, if it's a little wet, it's going to peel the paper. So you want to make sure it's completely dry before you run it through your die cutting machine. So now I'm just going to temporarily adhere that die cut window panel onto my card base, and then I'm going to use my Misti to stamp the sentiment, which is from the same set in our Noir dye ink. Then I'm going to peel that die cut window off, and I'm going to take off all of that temporary adhesive with a rubber eraser. Next, I'm going to use some dimensional foam tape to pop up that die cut window onto my base. Then I'm going to adhere that floral cluster towards that bottom edge of my die cut window, but any portion of the cluster that's going to be over the minty green portion, you want to make sure you use a double layer of foam tape. Then I'm going to put just a single layer of foam tape behind my cluster for any portions of the cluster that's going to go onto the die cut panel. You just want to make sure that there's even support across the entire cluster, so you can even just adhere that floral cluster directly onto the white panel and just use a single layer of foam tape on behind the cluster that's on the minty portion. So it's totally up to you how you want to pop it up. So to finish off the card, I just embellished with sequins and I used our glass slippers in all sizes all across my card. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!